I said, well, I don't know, I don't got anything to share. Like what the hell am I going to do? You just have, I've got nothing. So it's having the confidence, and I'm probably going to struggle with that a bit. I'll be honest. It puts me way out of my comfort zone. I sort of think I'm good with fonts and design. There you go. That's me. But yeah, it's trying to get sort of some confidence there. Now, so it's kind of having confidence, I think, to do that. I think is important.
One of the things I want to say is the last time we got together was actually, where was I? I was somewhere up the coast. I know. I was in Redcliffe in Queensland. Yes. And so Vicky actually overheard our conversation. And before, how can I put this? You were both talking about, what you don't, that imposter syndrome. I'm getting my tongue tied because I've got a bit of a foggy head, which is another story. But the thing that Vicky said to me was, you know what? I don't know what those two are going on about, because they are everything that I want to be.
Oh, wow.
That's both of you two. And so I think that statement, is something that you two need to take on board.
Oh, bless her. I don't know what to say to that.
No, I don't really. Oh. Slightly lost for words.
Yeah. That means a lot, though. Genuinely. It does.
Welcome to the Full Stop Podcast with Sarah Lawrence, Berenice Smith, and me, Michael Hughes. And if this is your first time here, our podcast is centred around supporting the childless not by choice community. Our aim is to be a focal point for the community, and with all our special guests, show you how to manage your grief and give a voice to the issues specific to us, and by example, show that a full and happy life can be had without those children we dearly wanted. And this episode, we come clean about our future plans. We are excited, but you will also see we felt uncomfortable, awkward, and this played into our insecurities.
Hi everyone, welcome to the first podcast in 2022, and we're kind of sat here. This is our second take. I think we should be honest because we've gone, we want to say this, we want to say that, and we kind of scripted it, and then we went, nah. So we are doing take two, and what we're going to do is, because we mentioned this kind of sneakily in the last podcast 2021, we have big news, and because we've got big news, we're all a little bit nervous, and we're kind of like, who's going to announce? But I think I'm going to put it over to Michael to announce our big news, and then we're all going to pile in as normal.
Okay.
Go on, Michael.
You're going to have to excuse me, my head's a bit fuzzy. I think I might have COVID, but that's another story for another day. But our big news is that we are going to make the podcast into a CIC. Now, for our Aussie listeners, that will mean nothing. But for our UK listeners, it is a charitable interest company.
It's Michael here from the future with a correction. No idea how I came up with a CIC being a charitable interest company. I'll blame it on COVID. But what I meant to say was that a CIC is a community interest company, and you can find out more at www.gov.uk. Okay, let's get back to the show.
Now, what that means is that it runs as a company, but the profits need to be put back into the the community that you represent. So it is not a non-profit, and is not a charity as such. So we felt this was the best fit for the podcast, and the reason we're doing that is because we want to grow, and we want to do more, and we want to do more for the community. And I think Berenice actually in take one did this better than I.
I will try and remember what it was I said. The definition, by the way, is that it's a CIC is a special type of limited company which exists to benefit the community rather than the private shareholders. So private shareholders really technically is us, but it doesn't benefit us. And I think that's really important to say, that it's not, at no point in the podcast have we ever taken any money for what we do. We do it completely voluntary. I would probably say it's fair to say that we've kind of winged it to a point in terms of the process of it. And it's been very much a kind of a sideline for us. But the feedback that we've had from the audience, from you, listeners, and from other people, thought leaders, if you want, inspirational people, people that have been our guests, but people that when we first set up the podcast, we thought, oh, wow, it'd be great to get them on. And then we realized that, oh, people actually do want to come on the podcast. And actually they think that we're a vehicle worth investing in too, and their time. But they've all kind of, we felt along the way that, without wishing to be kind of boastful, and we're very, very modest about what we do. But we've realized that we have a place within the community, that we actually have things that are worth saying. We have guests with stories to tell, and we want to make that more official. We want to make it something that will be future-proof in a very weird and strange world. It's still a weird and strange world, and have some security behind it too. And if you've ever run a podcast, or if you've set up some sort of community group or initiative, anything within our community, it's a real struggle. And we've talked about this for a year, I think. It's probably over a year now, on and off.
Yeah.
Because there's that. Go on. Sorry, Sarah.
No, sorry. I was just saying it's been a while that we've been talking about it.
It has, because we initially, when we first started this, it was because I think most people know the story of the podcast, but it was an idea that came from the Big C, which is a radio show on BBC Radio 4. It's just started up again. It's definitely worth listening to. And it's presented by people who themselves, 3 women who have cancer, and Rachel Bland passed away, and they set up an award for people who wanted to set up a podcast. And it occurred to us at the time, or I think to me actually, was just like, well, what if there was a podcast for childless people run and set up and presented by people who are actually childless themselves? Rather than people kind of like telling us what we should be feeling, then why don't we talk about what we are feeling? This is us. And that's sort of where it came from. But it's become apparent there's so many themes, as well as so much diversions in this. We digress in an episode, never mind, our Trello board is bursting at the seams. So there's an awful lot that we can do. But universally, I think we've felt that we've actually had a lot of praise for everything that we're doing. There's been a lot of kind of interest from other people, and people looking at podcasts too. But it's the time that it takes as well in doing that. And anyone who's done anything in this community can realize it's such a passion, but actually at the same time we've got to be organized about how we view that passion and structure it as well, because it costs a lot of money. This is the awkward part. This is why we're kind of doing the take 2, because we were kind of like, oh God, it's the money thing, and oh, we don't do this, because there is actually, again, that worry. You don't want to make money out of people's grief. I mean, let's be honest, that's kind of what it feels like sometimes, I think, and it's been a big struggle for all 3 of us, and we've got involved with the business network that I belong to. I just want to say thank you to them as well. It's a business network called Drive. There's a horse just going past my window. Sorry, I want to just say that there's a horse just walked past the window. But yeah, a big thank you to Drive the Network, who actually were part of kind of what we're doing here. And they're all business people, and gave all 3 of us advice on how to do this, because it's really sensitive to us and really important to us as well. But we don't want to be seen to be making money from grief, but we also need to protect the podcast for the future as well, and to open it up so you become part of us. Sarah, you talk so well about this, but it is opening up the podcast to the listeners. So it's not just the 3 of us on here and our guests, but also its listeners get the opportunity to be involved as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what we're saying in a roundabout way is we love doing what we do. we love the fact that we support you. I get feedback from lots of different people that I talk to, but we can't run it on love alone. Putting it bluntly, we want it here to be here for the future for everybody that's out in the community. And we know that as much as we love doing the podcast once a month, there's so much more we could be doing. But we run it on our finances, and unfortunately the ambitions we've got, and they are big, means that our pockets aren't deep enough to fuel those ambitions, because we want to be more than the podcast. We want to be doing a lot more activity out in the community. We want to be supporting you, and that means that although we do it for the love and we do it on our own time, we actually want other people involved too. And we want you involved. So we are going to be asking you a lot more questions, a lot more interaction. We're going to be asking for your opinions on things, because if you get involved, and we'd love you to, not just for the money, but for you, because we'd love you to be the fourth presenter, basically, then that means that you can shape it, you can mold it, and it then becomes the community hub we want it to be, rather than just the hub for us three, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. It's not about nicking your ideas and using them as our own, but you being effectively our fourth co-pilot. And then we can take it in all the weird and wonderful directions that we've got planned. But then we also know that it's hitting the spot for our fourth co-pilot. So, so we've got some big plans, and that means we're going to be looking at Patreon. Now, I'll be honest, I'm going to hand back to Berenice, because I know very little about Patreon. I know the name. She's explained it to me countless times, and it's just gone straight over the head. So I'm going to hand it back to Berenice now.
Okay, so currently on the podcast, we ask for donations via Ko-fi. So you can buy us a virtual coffee, which we gratefully receive any donations at all. It's fantastic. Patreon is slightly different in that it is a subscription type service. It means you can buy into the podcast. What we would like to do is reframe the Full Stop so it becomes the Full Stop with a podcast, which is a bit weird. It's taking some getting used to for us to think of it like that, but it allows the Full Stop to grow and the podcast to sit alongside it, to almost sort of showcase of what we're doing on the Full Stop. Ideally, what we want to do is to have people to come in and to contribute via Patreon, and that does mean financially, and also with rewards. We want to offer rewards. We don't ask for you to donate in the way that Ko-fi, we say donate and the money goes, and it goes towards the things that we actually have. So the running costs, if you want, of the podcast are things like the website hosting. Podbean costs money. We haven't yet done transcriptions because they're beyond the budget that we have at the moment, but we do want to do those. And we've got some quite exciting ideas on how we want to produce those transcripts, but also how we deliver them. Most importantly, the delivery of the transcripts. And that's kind of an idea in progress, and I'm going to share that at the moment. And if we manage to pull it off, I'm going to be so excited. It'll be ridiculous. We've got stuff like Google Workspace that we use as well behind the scenes. There's quite a lot of other things we do, and we want to kind of structure the social media a little bit better as well, things like that, so we can be a bit more on the ball with that. And there's other things that we want to do that we're currently beyond our budget to do. But we don't want to just say give money, because that's a bit Bob Geldof Live Aid, and that's what we're really, really trying to avoid. We don't want to do that. And it's awkward. This is all awkward. I'm sitting here cringing. But we will offer rewards, because that's what Patreon does. And that's the best thing about that platform that we have seen, is that you can come into it, you can be part of our podcast, and you can be rewarded for being part of that podcast. Michael is very keen to have mugs. We're also looking at stickers. But there might be other stuff that you want too. So, for example, one of the things that we're going to try out with you is to have a 30-minute video and audio recording of us behind the scenes. So you'll actually see us, and you can contribute to that. So you can ask us a question. You can say, okay, well, email one of us. You know where we are on social media. I hope you can find all our social media links on the website, www.thefullstoppod.com. That's right, isn't it? That is a website address. I write this in all the time.
It is.
Anyway, it is. Oh, good, lovely. I do know that much. I'm about to take the pod out. Anyway, nevertheless, that's our website address at the moment. And you can contact us via that. You can contact us via social media. And you can say, well, here's a thing that we want to talk about. Or this happened in the news. And actually, I found it quite triggering. Could the three of you unpack it for me? We've got hopefully we've got the skills to do that. Explore those topics in a deeper way. You obviously heard that we hopefully had the sex and intimacy episode, and that was quite a big one for us. But there might be stuff that you want us to talk about. But it'll be the three of us talking about themes, and it means you've got more of a chance to guide what we do, because the episodes will carry on as normal. So you will still have your recording of our guests every month. That will still happen. That doesn't, business as normal. I think that's really important in this time of change, to stress that business as normal will happen. That doesn't change, but you've got the opportunity via Patreon to become more involved. But there's loads of stuff we could do. The website can carry a lot of things as well. But what do you want us to do to make the podcast better for you, or the full stop better? Given, if you think about it the way we are, the full stop plus the podcast, what can the full stop do to make something easier for you? What can we do to address a theme? Is there some support that we can give you somewhere along the line? Is there something else that we can do? Is there something around, we're talking this morning about business networking, other services that aren't necessarily yet covered? So do let us know. That's really important, because making the change to a CIC, as I said, that definition is we benefit the community. You are our community. We would not be here if it wasn't for you listening to us today. So that really is the nuts and the bolts of it. We really need some guidance on that, and to open it up to our listeners, because that, if we don't do the right things and don't say the right things and action the right things, then actually the podcast won't exist anymore. We need that feedback too, or it would just be the three of us in a room talking to each other. But
ourselves.
as per usual, but I think that it for me, it's kind of making the podcast a bit more disciplined as well. We will start to be more focused. We're relatively focused, I think, on what we do in terms of when we release the podcast, but it will mean perhaps looking again at what we put in the newsletter. Maybe there's opportunities for you to put things in our newsletter when it goes out, because it reaches an awful lot of people. It's a really big list now. Yeah, there's lots of stuff that we could explore here too. But again, yeah, that whole process, I think, of recording the podcast and fixing in dates, fixing in themes, being more open about the themes that we're exploring, the guests we've got being booked into, and how we book them in, and how we present the podcast. We're looking at the website. I'm looking at that at the moment. So thank you if you've contributed to the type form as well for the website feedback. I did a survey a couple of weeks ago. We've got lots of interest in that, lots of really useful comments. So thank you very much. I'm going to be reading that and looking at the branding of the podcast as well, and the full stop. So seeing what we want to do with that in the future too. But maybe you want a mug with Michael's face on it. I don't know. Let us know what you would like.
Yeah.
Or stick with our logo on. I don't know, laptop decals, that sort of thing. I think, bear in mind that we are on different continents. I'm not sure how we ship these things. Anyone who's got any advice on that, much appreciated. But again, all those sorts of things that we could perhaps develop and get you more involved. There might actually be something you think, oh, the full stop could run this on the website, and actually I could do a bit of that for you, and I could help you with that. Again, we'd be really happy to do that. We don't necessarily think of changing the podcast team. The three of us would still present the podcast, but it might be that there's some area of something that we could do, and that can become yours sort of to help us with, and we can bring you into our kind of community, the podcast, the full stop, if you like, as opposed to the podcast, if that makes sense. Yeah.
As we say, it is community interest, isn't it? And we're all about you guys. It's not about us just, I guess, amusing ourselves, really. That's never what it's been about. It's been about community. And I think this just takes it to the next level for us. It's transparent, it's open, it's a charitable interest. So it's not about us, I guess, profiting. That's never what it's been about. And it just means that we can shape it and make it work for the community by doing what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. It's that protection, I think, as well. It also means that we can protect our intellectual property a bit more, the content that we produce too. I think we've always suffered a little bit with that imposter syndrome as well. Are we good enough to do this? And I think it's taken, a good, 2 years, possibly maybe 3 now, isn't it? Of kind of like, are we good enough? Can we do this? Have we got the skills and the tools to do it? And we are still, I openly confess to having imposter syndrome. I still kind of wonder why I'm here. I will often say to Michael and Sarah, I do the pretty bits, but I also turn up and I help present and do something useful, I think. And it's having the confidence, I think, as well. It's kind of, that's a show of confidence in ourselves that we've got something that's worth committing to, and we do want to commit to that. A CIC is not something that's particularly easy to set up. Sarah has been doing all the hard work behind the scenes on all that paperwork side. There's forms to fill in, there's bank account to sort out. We've got to grow the way that we do our admin, so I'm looking at that. There's things to sort out on the website too, and the tech that I'm looking at. And that again is all really important stuff for us to take care of, so that we're actually a bit more visible and sharing our skills a bit more between the three of us, but also with you as well. So maybe that's something else to exploit. How do you do a podcast? We've learned a lot. I think we've done an episode at the beginning of how we do a podcast, but
it's changed.
I don't know, good with that, and now we're starting to be a bit more official about it. There's probably a whole learning curve there that we could explain as well. Even in terms of managing our time, because as I said earlier, these things are passion projects and they can really take over. But I think that the underlying thing is that it is a community thing. We're not setting out to make money for ourselves. We've never done that. We've never ever sought to do that. Our guests contribute their time for free as well, and we are very, very grateful to them for doing that. But it's to protect the podcast and to cover the running costs. One of the conversations Sarah and I had last week was, we could cost ourselves and price ourselves out of existence, and we don't want to do that. So this is important for us to sort of to take care of that and to protect ourselves.
It's quickly becoming clear that I'm doing all the rock and roll stuff then, isn't it? Setting up the kick and all that sort of stuff. Hooray! Exciting times, people.
Oh, don't worry. I was sat there talking code to myself the other day, looking at the website, and then I got a bit nerdy about so it's something to do with what was it? Something to do with coding, something about how we set up events if we want to put the more formal stuff that we do the recording in. And I couldn't get to do a certain thing with the colours. And I was like, there's a bit of code for that. That's very exciting. I got very pleased about my code. And
we are three.
You don't know about the font thing. I mean, the font thing, I'm sitting there going, that font. And because I had a conversation with Michael about changing the branding. And there was this font, so you think, rock and roll in my house, because I was thinking, the negative space isn't very good. And then I got my husband involved, because my husband is into print and design as well. That's kind of how we met, through a shared love of print and design and typography. So I'll tell you, it's rock and roll around here. Conversation about Times New Roman. And I was thinking, there's that font doesn't quite work. It's not quite right. And my husband's going, no, that's not the right font either. It doesn't feel right, does it? I'm like, no, it doesn't. And I've got, if anyone could see us talking, Jesus.
I love that though. I love that, because you've got Vicky and Michael with their workshop stuff, and then you've got you and your other half talking about fonts and negative space. Isn't that lovely though?
Nerdy. Yeah, I'm more of a nerd than he is. I have to say, I'm a bit nerdy, because I'll go into not I'm doing it at the moment with the pandemic and stuff, but go into restaurants, I'd be like, no, I don't like the menu, the way they're laid it out, it's not good. They can't invest in that, and they can't invest in food, can they? I'm not really sure about it. In the way that there's probably editors out there listening, just going, okay, if I see a typo, I'm not walking in there.
Oh, it's like 50 Shades of Nerd And then we are back at leather and rubber again, Michael.
Cracking the whip. Crack the whip. Again, dear listener, this is the conversation in take one where Michael and Sarah confessed to not being particularly disciplined, and I said, well, I am, and I will crack the whip. And it went rapidly downhill. And that's where we're going to leave that conversation right now, because I got thoroughly distracted by things that were popping up on the Zoom chat. Fellow co-presenters. So I'm cracking the whip and saying, behave yourselves. Behave.
Boo.
Behave.
I'm biting my tongue.
Put on your hands. Crack the whip.
Oh.
Ah. Couldn't help yourself.
Don't type something you shouldn't type.
So yes, dear listener, you're going to be more involved.
Yes, and I think also probably to say as well, don't be intimidated by that. Really don't be. You know, we welcome everybody. We'd set out, I think, in the beginning, we had to secure big names, or what we would call big, inspirational people who inspired us, and we had to really kind of focus on that because we have no budget for social media. We've never paid for a Facebook advert. We've never paid for a Twitter advert. We've never done anything like that. So it's always been organic. So we've needed that support from social media too. So we had to have a strategy of sorts at the beginning. But we're always very keen to share everyone's story, everybody. That's really important. Our Trello board is bursting at the seams with lists of themes. We've been talking about Pacific themes recently, about how we ended up here. Again, that was something that Michael thought of just off the cuff earlier on today. Do we do a theme of how we ended up in these places? Because it's so many themes and reasons that we're all here are not always obvious. So is that something that we can explore? And would you like to help explore that with us? We can read out sound bites. So we do that often with the Alternative Kings and Queens speech. You can email us and we'll read things out for you. Again, if we're more open and transparent about the things we're talking about, is there, do you want us to read something out to you, your experiences? Do you have a problem of some description that you want us to go through as well with you and unpack? We can read it out anonymously. We're quite happy to have anonymous contributions as well as people coming on who talk to us directly too. So again, there's lots of opportunities here to get involved in the podcast, but we are involved. I think that's the issue that we have. We are involved. The three of us are here. We don't know what it's like from your side sometimes. So what do you want us to do? So turning it all around to you and saying, what can we do to help you?
But before we go, I just want to talk about my odyssey to Queensland. So I want to say hello to Jill, Kelly, and Warwick, Sarah Roberts, and Kevin Riley in near Brisbane, Anita, and her husband Christian, who all graciously met Vicky and I while we were up there. Not finished though, and Sue Dowry as well. So thanks. I'd like to thank you all for agreeing to see me, and Vicky. Sorry, always forget Vicky. Terrible.
Can I also do a thank you as well, if that's okay?
But one of the things it did do, sorry, Baroness, but it made Vicky real. So like people actually know that I am married. I do have a wife. Because she stands in the shadows, and so it was good too. But anyway, thank you everyone. Sorry, Baroness, you go right ahead.
What was I going to say? I wanted to say a big thank you to Drive the Network, who do business goals, and they were really, really helpful. I did a thing with them called a business mastermind. This was way back in November, and where you present a problem and 20 people, business owners, turned up and helped to solve the problem. And the problem was, well, the podcast is great, but actually we're just a bit worried about the future of it. We don't want to make money off stuff like grief. We don't want to do that, but we need to secure its future. And 20 people turned up and helped problem solve that in groups. So a lot of the what we're doing here today is down to them giving us the confidence to do that. And an awful lot of the Drive team are parents, but they do listen to the podcast, they support the podcast. And I just want to say a massive thank you, because they've really helped as well for me to understand that we do have people on our side out there who may not share our journey. I think that's been a really, really wonderful thing, and particularly to Anne Hawkins, who runs the Drive the Network and does it so brilliantly and so openly and honestly. She's a real inspiration to me. And also just another thing as well that's popped up as a sideline, I'm hoping that this will happen, is that last week there's a thing that's going around called Digital Women, and it's a group that's a big group online that do teaching women training and social media stuff. They cover everything. They've got a community, a paid community, and they also have a Facebook page as well. And they do an awards ceremony every year. And I've been a digital woman to watch, and I'm a founder member of it. But they had a category called Digital Mother. And I was really encouraged by a conversation that happened on Facebook last week, where a mother of two said, well, isn't digital mother a bit awkward? What if you're not a mum? You can't really apply to that. Bear in mind, she is a parent herself, this lady who queried this category in asking for feedback on the awards. And I was really reluctant, because I thought, I don't know, want to go into that, because Google my name and you're like, oh yeah, she's the childless one, this is a podcast, and I thought a pylon, I don't feel that I could deal with a pylon in that way, if such a thing would happen. I don't think it would, but I'm just kind of cautious of those things. Anyway, on the back of this lady's comment, I thought, well, actually I will go in and I just sort of mention it. And there was the feedback was that mothers are possibly more likely to be exposed to the gender pay gap because of taking a break in childcare. And I was able to kind of respond to that and say, well, actually, if you're trying for kids, so you're going through fertility treatment like me, I got stuck in the job for ages on low pay because I didn't think anyone would want to employ me if I was going through fertility treatment. And I also wanted the maternity pay. If you swap jobs, you may lose that. You go to statutory, which isn't enough. And companies don't have fertility policies in place as well. And there's an awful lot of other reasons around mental health and physical health why women who don't have children may also suffer with the gender pay gap. In fact, I think all women do. And it's one of those big things that I've been talking about with the gender pay gap at Cambridge University. And I know that a lot of people with Gateway Women have been talking about that too. It's a big part of their themes for the future and currently going on now. Anyway, upshot and conclusion is that hopefully, I hope that the digital mother category will be changing to digital carer to represent people, women who are caring in other ways, in all the ways that you and I as listeners and as presenters, we know that they are caring, maybe for elderly parents. We're caring for lots of different responsibilities for each other and for our friends, and different definitions of family. I hope that happens. I don't know for sure. It seems like it is. It's fairly secure. I'll let you know about it in a future episode. But I was really, really pleased that actually to see that I was listened to, but also that actually a mother of two brought it up first and recognised that actually our community might struggle with an award like that. So that's really exciting news. A little bit of an equality thing going on there.
Definitely. No,
Nice work. Awesome.
Really good. Really impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah. Small changes. But it's
Small
all working
thing,
that way.
but actually, again, it's the podcast that helps, because actually I've got the security of the podcast behind me, and also the fact that I've got our community behind this. So if it was a bit of a pile on Facebook, I could at least go, oh God, and I've got somewhere to kind of explore those feelings too. I think that's also a really important part of the Full Stop, is that it is a space, a safe space for people to explore feelings if they want to.
It is.
Mm.
I don't know if you recall, a few months ago, I put out that I was putting together a therapist network. So I'm going to join in the thanks and the shout outs. I'm not going to name people just yet because it's early days, but I want to thank those that have come on board for their time and their willingness to invest in that therapist network. You know who you are at the moment, and maybe later on when it's a bit bigger, we can do something about it, talk about it or do something about it in the Full Stop hub that is coming. But yeah, so thank you. But yeah, and funny enough, Michael, I had you know when Facebook pops up photos, do you remember that Pampas grass photograph? That's just literally popped up on my Facebook feed. And if you want to know about the Pampas grass, you'll have to go back and listen to the BB Lynch episode.
I think that was the first one for 2020, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, you have to go back and listen to that one. I wasn't on that one. I did listen to it, and I was just I thought that's what happens when I'm not around.
It was an education.
So yeah, we've been up to quite a bit actually behind the scenes, really. Haven't we? I just wanted to give a bit of a shout out thing that if I'm not road tripping, but I'm going up to Tixall, which is up near Staffordshire way, in beginning of March. So if anyone's around in that part of the world and you want to kind of meet up and say hi in a safe kind of COVID-y way, then you know, un-COVID way, safe kind of social distancing then please do get in touch via the podcast. I'd be really happy to see you. I'm just there for the second week of March, I think it is. I'll put something out on social media. This is people are around. It'd be nice to kind of say hello and meet up with any listeners we've got in that part of the UK.
Cool. So yeah, hopefully everyone's really excited as we are. And yeah, you'll watch this space for the more stuff that's going to come out as and when we get it all together. But
do let us know if there's something you want us to do. You know, community is really important. CIC is a really important part of this, and hearing from you really, really helps to guide the podcast and the Full Stop into a new direction. And that's principally why we're doing it, because we've had the feedback and the faith from you. You've kind of given us the faith to do this and the confidence to do that too. So
yeah, so thank you.
Let us know what
and don't
think.
forget the mug. Don't forget the mug.
He's hanging on to this mug. This mug's not going anywhere, is it?
Not going anywhere. We're just going to have to do one for you. It's going to have to be some like bucket size thing that we're going to have to ship over to you on.
Yeah, honest Doc, I'm only on a cup a day. But no, thank you everyone. Thank you for your confidence and for listening to us. We really appreciate it.
Yes, we certainly do. Thank you.
And we'll be back in February. Getting my dates muddled now. I'm terrible for this. I'm awful. Back in February, and we'll be doing we're going to test out the 30-minute episode with us. So if you have a theme, tell us. If not, we will find a theme. We do have a theme, but we will happily take suggestions and adapt and be flexible. So let us know on social media, but do it fairly quickly, because we will be recording on the 6th of February. I think we're aiming to record then.
Thanks for listening and being part of the evolution of us, our podcast, and our community. We really do want to reach more of our sisters and brothers around the world, and we want them to feel what keeps bringing you back to the podcast. Please reach out to us if you want more information on our future plans, or you may have an idea that we haven't even thought of. So please reach out to us, and you can find all our contact details at www.thefullstoppod.com. And as always, it's important for us to let you know you are not alone.
I just wanted to talk about like the process that we have, because we just had a bit of a talk about that too, because Michael said he's not disciplined, and Sarah said, well, not me really either, and luckily I am. So cracking the whip, I think, is this particular part of the podcast. At this point, Bernice cracks the whip.
I might have to lose a bit of weight because I don't look good in leathers this big.
I said nothing about that. You lowered the tone.
Cracking the whip. All right, damn it.
Michael Hughes, you lowered the tone. I said nothing. I just said cracking the whip in the business sense of making sure that we're more disciplined.
Oh, mate, I thought that was rubber, not leather.
Where you two are going, I don't know. Dear listener, I'm on the same wavelength as you. These two are just going off somewhere in another world.
All right, I'll shut up.
Yeah, you can shut up.